Hey everybody, it is January 15th, 2009. I'm Sonic Sons, and can I say something obvious? The Electoral College makes no sense. It never really did. Okay, let's review what this is. Here in America, we have the highest office in the land, the President of the United States. You may have heard of him. And we have a big old national election, and people vote for whatever candidate they want. Whoever gets the most votes wins. That's a pretty basic idea of democracy. There are, in fact, a whole bunch of different ways to do voting systems, upon which I've done YouTube videos and the Blip.tv video. I always say YouTube because I get all of my comments on YouTube, except for like 5%. I don't know. But everyone gets the basic idea. The very basic, okay, votes, and then everyone votes for one person. Whoever gets the most votes wins. And the majority of the time, that's what happens. Here's the weird thing, though. Instead of actually just, counting up the ballots and then, declaring a winner, for some reason, we have this weird thing where every state has a certain number of electors, they're called. And then the state will, in any way it feels like it, choose electors, to actually cast the real votes. Because the votes cast by the people don't actually count, for some reason. And so you cast this vote, and then in every state, really, one way or another, electors are chosen based on the popular vote within that state. And then those electors vote for whoever basically they've been, told to vote for, or recruited, with the assumption they would vote for whomever. And then that person gets elected president. So you figure, okay, that's kind of weird and indirect, but you still get the same person elected, right? Wrong. Just 8 years ago. Oh, fateful day. Al Gore won the popular vote, but George Bush won the electoral vote. You want a little graph on Wikipedia. They explain how it is you can win the popular vote and lose the electoral. It involves winning the... let's see. If you get... if the guy winning the electoral vote gets small margins in several big states, and then loses by really big margins in all the other states, eventually the math works out that you could become president even though the other guy got more votes. And the great thing is that those votes, electoral votes, are not actually accorded proportionally. You get as many electors as you have seats in Congress, which is your number of people in House of Representatives, that's proportional, or relatively so, plus 2 for your senators, which means that small states get a bigger piece of the pie than they ought to. And in fact, this was apparently the biggest objection to one of many attempts to get rid of the Electoral College was, let's see, the 91st Congress, Wikipedia here, so cool. The principal objections are people from small states. This one's like, they put in a proposed amendment to get rid of the Electoral College. And people from small states objected and said, no, then we'll have less political influence. Well, yeah, maybe you deserve less political influence. You have fewer people. Can you look at this halfway objectively? If you lived in a big state, you would think this is unfair. As soon as you live in a small state, no, I need that extra oomph in our numbers. We needed to boost the thing. We needed to... Oh my gosh. And there's a crap of things wrong with the Electoral College, right? I mean, there's obviously, the popular vote doesn't necessarily apply. Oh, isn't that fun? There's allowing states to disenfranchise their citizens without penalty. This is a big deal, particularly right at the beginning. And everyone's vying for more control. It's a very common thing in government. The southern states wanted to be able to count their black people, whom they, enslaved. So, they said, how about, you get these electors based on your population? Not population of people who voted in any sort of national election. No. Just population of people who live there and may or may not be slaves. They eventually got to count 3/5 of their slaves. This also worked to disenfranchise women, because you get to count the whole population and not... the voting population. Imagine if we'd had that, where the electors, if we are going to have Electoral College, is at least admit that, or at least, not even say Electoral College, just the idea that your amount of political force in determining the president being directly proportional to the amount of people who are allowed to actually vote, well then, gee, if you allow women's suffrage, you would double your power at choosing the next president. But with the Electoral College, it was entirely unnecessary to do that. Like, you count the population, not the voting population. If we have a popular vote, though, that would obviously be counting the voting population, you see. So, there's that whole thing. The math being wrong for the less populous states. Come on, and then I'm trying to look at, they have the other arguments in favor of the Electoral College. Prevents an urban-centric victory. Says, well, there are more people living in urban areas. And then if you got all the urban areas, you would win. I was like, yeah. Maybe the urban areas should win if there are more people. There's an idea that somehow with the Electoral College it forces you to appeal to a broad variety of people. Like, you could just get the urban areas in the populous states, and there's nothing in the Electoral College, mechanism that says, okay, you have to apply to like the urbans and the rurals and the suburbans. You apply to appeal to the Catholics and the Jews and rather than you gotta appeal to the people who like jazz and the people who like country and the people who like. There's nothing in there about appealing to a wide variety of people. I can sort of see where you're going with that, but no. This doesn't, particularly when it's geography. Why exactly do we choose these things based on geography? The president is in charge of everybody. I can make, obviously, if you're elected governor of a state, the people living in that state are most affected by him, or her. They get to choose, but in other words, in other cases, when it's the whole nation, you think the whole nation would choose. That would just make so much sense, but no, it would make too much sense. There's things about maintains the federal character of the nation. Like, it would be a step towards a single centralized government. Like, okay. I'm pretty much okay with it. Most other countries have sort of a centralized government, Britain's doing quite well with that, right? I don't want to abolish the states. I particularly like the idea of constitutional amendments needing a state approval. Because something as big as the Constitution, requires us to even leave Washington, D.C. entirely and go off to other places and entirely other groups of people. Not geographically that would matter, but entirely other groups of people, having them approved. So having states in general is fine. But this vague sense that we'd be diminishing the federal character of the nation, I don't know what it is. That is, enhances status of minority groups. It says because if the votes of a given state are an all or nothing affair, minority groups can provide the critical edge that allows the candidate to win. Any group can provide the critical edge that allows the candidate to win, including the majority group. Electoral College is nothing particular about you must appeal to minorities. Some people like the two-party system. I don't particularly see why that would be better, than 3 or 4 or 8 parties. There's a deal like, well, if something crazy happened to the candidate, the electors could choose someone else. It was like, yeah, but there's a narrow window wherein that might happen, and the electors would get to change their minds. And if you need like a backup electoral college for only cases where the person has just died, well, maybe. But ugh. And what? It doesn't make sense. It's a democracy. Every other thing we have, our mayors and our governors and our senators and everybody, 99% of them anyway, I don't know, elected by, you get more votes, you win. This system doesn't make any sense at all. Thanks for watching. See you later.